Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Charlie, and this video is all about my thoughts and opinions on whether or not you should buy a cheap old sports car or spend a lot more money on a new one. What are the pros and cons? Is it worth spending that extra money, or should you just save it and do something else with it? Now, this is a topic that comes up in all sorts of areas, but it's especially fun to talk about when it comes to cars. Everyone's got their own opinion and everyone's situation is different, so it makes for a great topic. So with that, let's get right to it. Now, to illustrate this, I'm going to be using my own cars, and conveniently, I have a great pair of cars to do this with. Representing the cheaper option is my base model 2002 Chevrolet Corvette, and its more expensive counterpart is this 2018 Grand Sport Corvette. These cars are separated by 16 years and 2 model generations. So on the face of it, I expected to have a lot to say about the differences between these two cars. But in putting this video together, as you'll soon find out, they're a lot more similar than you might expect. But the big question is, do these differences make one option better than the other? Now, to kick off this comparison, we're going to start with the biggest difference between these two, which is obviously the price. And it's really straightforward. Book values on very good condition C5 base model Corvettes, like this one, which is what I'm going to be using, run about $10,000. But they go up to about $15,000 if you spec it out with a Z06. This price can vary a lot due to a number of factors like mileage, condition, modifications, and options. But for this demonstration, I just picked standard equipment with a base model with around 100,000 miles, which is typical for a car this old. While this car, on the other hand, with 10,000 miles in very good condition, has a book value of over $60,000. So there you have it. The newer car in this example is 6 times more expensive than the older car, so it's a pretty clear winner. But you may be thinking, duh, the cheap car in this example is obviously going to be cheaper than the expensive car. But the real question is this car worth 6 times the price? Well, to find out, let's take a look at the performance figures, since these are sports cars and that's kind of the whole reason they exist. The short answer is no. This 2018 Grand Sport Corvette is not 6 times faster than a 2002 Corvette. In fact, in stock form, a C5 Corvette will hit 0 to 60 in just under 5 seconds, where this C7 Corvette in stock form will hit 0 to 60 in just under 4 seconds. But something tells me if having a car that's quick off the line is all that you're interested in, that $50,000 that you saved buying the older car put into upgrades for an older car is going to be way more than enough to make up that 1 second. However, on a track is where you're going to really start to see the differences between a 5th generation and a 7th generation Corvette. The C5 is capable of 0.99 of a G on a skid pad and takes 104 feet to stop from 60 miles an hour, where a C7 Grand Sport Corvette takes only 90 feet to stop from 60 and can pull 1.2 Gs on a skid pad. This may not sound like a whole big of a difference to most people, but behind the wheel, it becomes extremely evident the differences in the capabilities between these two cars. So the C7 is clearly the better choice based purely on performance. There is one caveat though. I'm talking stock versus stock. There's obviously a ton of options, suspension upgrades, tires, and motor mods that you can do to a C5 to make it outperform a C7. But a lot of times these mods can add thousands and thousands of dollars to the price of the car, which you would still come out ahead, but it really comes down to whether or not you want to do something to the car yourself or just buy it and be done with it. So if you like the idea of setting up a car yourself and doing all the work yourself, buying something older knowing you're going to modify it might be the better choice for you. But modifying your car brings me to the next point that you need to consider, and that's reliability. Now, this one can be tough because despite what you might think, there's a lot of new cars that are not very reliable, and there are a lot of old cars that are very reliable. But at least with a new car, you have the peace of mind that you may have a warranty, so if something does go wrong, you're not caught on the hook for the cost. Whereas you're on your own if you get caught with an issue in an older car. That's why I always set aside a little bit of extra money when buying a used car So I have a little bit there to work with in case I experience anything unexpected come up with the car. For example, I actually bought the C5 Corvette while it was undrivable. There was an issue that it had with the slave cylinder, so the car wouldn't actually drive at all. But because of this, I got this car for half the price of a running C5. So it worked out nicely to save money on the car and put it back together myself with these upgraded parts. So I'm gonna call this one a draw, because if you do your research, plan, and get the right deal, both options can be completely reliable. Something else you want to consider is value and day-to-day expenses. We already went over the fact that both cars can be reliable, but that doesn't mean you don't have ongoing expenses associated with each car. In general, and contrary to what you might think, expect a noticeable increase in the ongoing expenses associated with a new car. Insurance, taxes, and wearable items are almost always more expensive for newer cars than they are older ones. I keep full coverage insurance on the C7, but the C5 is so cheap and I drive it so little that I just have liability insurance on it. In my state, I also pay an ad valorem tax each year that I renew the tags. So for the C7, that's considerably more expensive to renew my tags each year than it is to do for the C5, because that ad valorem tax is based on the value of the car. If you want a detailed breakdown of all these expenses I've had with the C7 specifically, I'll put a link in the description below for a video that I put together on how much that car has cost me since I bought it new a few years ago. And this next topic that I'm gonna get into is much more of a make or break for a lot of people, which is totally the reason why I didn't buy a C6 Z06 Corvette, and that's the comfort and tech in each car. On track, there is a substantial difference between a C5 and a C7. However, let's be honest here, most Corvette owners are not gonna see one lap of track time. What they will see though is this appalling interior with just some hideously cheap plastics, fake leather. It's really, 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 really bad. And as you can see, I've taken most of my interior out. The only way a C5 interior would ever be considered nice is if the only car you've ever driven is a Nissan Quest or a Pontiac Aztek. Trust me, the steering wheel was the size of a dump truck, the radio was hopeless, and although the seats were comfortable, they gave no support at all under hard cornering, which is what the whole point of a sports car is to enjoy driving, and it didn't make any of those things fun to do. A big part of the driving experience is for a car to make you feel engaged in the experience, and every single thing about the stock C5 interior and input controls only worked against all of that driving enjoyment. A smaller steering wheel diameter, a short throw shifter, and some seats with actual support made a world of difference and completely transformed this car. And for the times you do just want to slow down and cruise with the roof off when the weather's nice, something like this Pioneer double din unit, make it really nice because it's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all that stuff, so you get some more modern features with it. Trust me, the factory radio is garbage. All of these changes make the car feel decades newer. So it's no surprise to anyone that the C7 definitely has by far the better interior. It's got a much more modern heads-up display that's a lot clearer to read than on the C5s. It's got heated and ventilated seats, dual zone climate control, navigation, just everything. Personally, I prefer analog gauges, but it still does have a really cool screen and you can get a lot of really cool layouts, different tack styles and things like that on it. And it does still have analog gauges, but they're just for the speedometer, gas gauge, and coolant temp. And you get this really cool camera system up underneath the rearview mirror that stores data on an SD card in the glove box, and it records video out the front and all your telemetry data, so if you do go to a track, you've got all that stuff you can analyze when you get back, and it's super cool. So needless to say, overall it is a much nicer place to be than in the C5. So if comfort and technology is your #1 goal, hands down, you've got to have a newer car. And finally, we have what I consider to be the most important factor when buying a car, and that is the fun factor. You see, to me, all these other logical based decisions that we've gone over play just a really minor role in whether or not I actually want to spend my money on a car. You gotta ask yourself, why am I buying this car and what am I gonna use it for? If you just want a budget car that you can take out, enjoy, have fun with, and not worry too much about, then buying an older car is definitely the way to go. That's why I still have the C5. I originally bought it to flip it and sell it and try and make some money, but it turns out I enjoy driving it so much that I've just not been able to get rid of it. It fills a different need than something like the C7 does for me. I don't really want to take this brand new car out on the track, so having something like the C5 that I have a whole lot less money tied up in, if I go into the gravel or something like that learning how to drive, it's gonna hurt a whole lot less in a $10,000 car than it will a $60,000 car. Which to me makes it a better choice if you're wanting to learn high performance driving, because there's a lot lower of a cost risk involved if you accidentally get in over your head in a C5 than a C7. It's just a huge difference in price. It takes a little bit of the pressure off stuffing a $60,000 car into a wall. But on the flip side, if you want a car that you're gonna spend a lot of time in and you're gonna go cruising around and go enjoy car shows with friends and just nice days and take the wife out, something newer like the C7 is definitely gonna be the option for you. I've spent a lot of time in this car and I've taken a few road trips in it, and I can tell you it's unbelievably comfortable. I do not want to be stuck in this car for more than 2 hours. That's about my limit. These fixed back racing seats, which I know I put in there, are not terribly comfortable for long periods of time, whereas these competition seats in the Grand Sport are amazingly comfortable for, I've driven 6, 7, 8 hours on them and I've still been fine. In conclusion, my best advice really is to just drive something old, drive something new, weigh in what you value the most, and make the decision based off that. You need to buy something that you can see yourself being happy with for the long term. You don't want to buy something hastily and then realize it's not what you want. It's a big decision either way. I mean, this example, you've got $10,000 or you've got $60,000, and that's a lot of money. But please don't go buy an expensive car thinking you're gonna impress somebody. I promise you, you're not gonna impress anybody. You're just gonna be disappointed when it doesn't, and you will have wasted your money. Or you could do the irresponsible thing like I did and just buy both. I love both of these cars equally because they both serve a different purpose. I enjoy them for different reasons, which is why I've kept both of them for so long. But at the end of the day, if you can't make that decision, you just need to make the decision that's best in your interest. You've got to weigh out what you value the most and go with that. Don't make your decision based on what you think someone else might think. And that about wraps it up. I appreciate you guys watching this far. As always, if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. I love making these videos. I love talking about cars. So if you want to see more like this, go check out my channel. Leave a message in the comments if you've got a question about something or if there's something you want to see more about. Hopefully I'll be getting a review of both of these cars individually with some driving footage for you guys in the future. But until then, take care.